Welcome to this webinar. Welcome. Hello, James. We're just waiting for to join.
Hello, James. Good evening. Is James say hello? I want
to be honest, when people join webinars, they just come in quietly.
They don't like sit at the back.
Yeah.
I hope people, the interesting thing is I feel like, I'm missing that physical interaction. So, yeah.
Hello, Ms. Amaka. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much for giving my wife a job. Thank you.
Oh, hi. Nice to see you.
Oh, did you not see who it was?
We're recording, by the way.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. That's school.
Please edit my
schoolgirl error, schoolboy error. We're too excited. That's why I wanted to start a bit early. I wanted you to meet him. I've been talking about you guys to one another so much. I thought, but it's okay. Right.
Yes, we're waiting for more people to join so we can have a good webinar. Okay. So far, we've got one person on. It's a bit of African timing. People are never on time, even on webinars. Amazing. On the line. What I'll do is, okay.
Oh, that's my sister-in-law.
Oh, welcome to the webinar. We're about to start.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. On, so we only have a few people at the moment, so we're going to wait for more people.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, of course. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking time.
Welcome to the webinar. Welcome. As you come in, this is the Develop Your A Game platform. And I'll just speak a little bit on the platform whilst we wait for more people to come in. Develop Your A Game was set up basically to provide free resources, information, skills podcasts, and a resource community where people can learn more about how to develop their A game, how to boost their careers and their small businesses or growing businesses. So this is our second ever webinar. Our first webinar was last month, and it was about biblical secrets of success. That went very well. So we're really, really happy to have our dear Wonuola Fasehun today, a very accomplished accountant, qualified in the UK and in Nigeria. So she's going to be taking us through all the do's and don'ts and what you really need to run good business accounting for your small business like a pro. So we're really happy to have her with us this evening, and we're happy to have you all on the call. So let's just give it a few more minutes and let me introduce myself. My name is Beverly Abakoba Onyejianya, and I'm the founder of Develop Your A Game. So I'll tell you a little bit more about it, perhaps after the webinar is over, but just want to give some more time to let more people in. So I suppose we can start in about 2 minutes so we don't keep people waiting much longer. So I hope everybody is ready to learn a lot. Let's have an interactive session. Let's just, bring our A games and learn a lot about accounting. So Wonu, we're just waiting now.
Thank you.
Okay.
So thanks for the introduction.
You're welcome.
So we'll just be...
I will make you a co-host, so...
Yes, I can share my screen.
Yes, please. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the recent joiners. This is the Develop Your A Game webinar, our free mind mapping session where every month we hold these free mind mapping sessions with professionals in the community. They'll be teaching us, running us through specific skills that we might probably need in our businesses, in our careers. So today we have the very, very intellectual and fun Wonuola Fasehun. And she's also a certified mediator, may I just add. She's a brilliant mediator at that. And she's also a dual qualified accountant and a fellow as well in the UK and also in Nigeria. So it's a real pleasure to have her here, sharing her knowledge with us. So I hope you enjoy this session. So Wonuola, I think we can start. It's about 6 minutes in, and obviously being an accountant, you're very particular with time, and we're trying to encourage, good time management practices. So I think we should take it away. Okay.
Thank you, Amaka. I just want to ask you something. I know you've made me the host, but I'm also getting the notifications.
Of course. Okay. So what you could do is, I'll let you share your content, and then you can assign it back to me.
Okay, but will that allow me to navigate through the? I thought if you had.
It should.
I made you the co-host. Did you make me the host or the? Okay.
Oh, we could share. That's always fine.
Okay, I'll Okay, let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen. So first of all, good evening to everybody. Thank you to everybody that's here, that has registered. I really want to try and make this interactive. I don't want to turn this into a lecture or an accounting class. I feel like some people are just going to log off, nod off. What I'm really going to be doing is I'm going to be drawing on a lot of the things that happen with me and ALP, our clients at ALP, and just really going through the various scenarios that some of our clients face as small to medium-sized business owners. I'm going to share my screen now so that you can see my presentation slide. So, okay. Right, okay. So Amaka has done some introductions, and I guess most of you already have seen the bio. My name is Wonuola Fasehun, or I go by Wonu as well. I'm an accountant at ALP Professional Services, and it's an audit firm and a business advisory firm. And we have clients across a number of sectors. Entertainment, food and drink, fintech, professional services, education, and non-profit. So we do churches as well. So a whole rack of them. So I'm wanting to be a bit interactive. Amak, I don't know if you can see the chat box. What I was hoping was that if people on the call can maybe perhaps write, if they're business owners, like the sector that they're in, because it would be quite good to try and relate the examples or things that I'm talking about specifically to the audience. So can we do that, please? Please don't be shy. Just say so your business is in, if you're a business owner, or if you're even a non-profit, if you run a non-profit, so please try and I really want this.
Okay, I can do that. I'll handle that as the MC for the night. So yes, ladies and gents on the call, definitely it's all about making this a very interactive and fun session. Accounting does not have to be boring. It's essential, but it does not have to be boring. We really want to know more about you. So if you just indicate in the chat box what your background is. Are you a small business owner? And if so, what sector are you in? Are you in food and drink? Are you in entertainment, legal services? Are you in manufacturing? There's a whole host of things. So please, get into the chat box and just type, introduce yourself. Okay, Taiwo, nice to hear from you, a small business owner in marketing. Yes, marketing is doing amazing things these days. Digital marketing has ramped up quite a bit. So I'm sure this session will be quite beneficial for you. Anybody else? I'm sure we have more people on this call. We really want to get the best out of this session. Legal services professional, thank you so much, Mr. Bolaji Fasehun. Thank you very much. Who else have we got in the room? Okay, so far we've got 2 responses. Oh, farming, fantastic. Oh, wow. Farming, it'll be good to know, what area of farming are you in? Are you in, you know, farming is so broad. Thank you, James, legal services professional. So we've got quite a nice, diverse group in here. So that's really fantastic. Okay, so Wonuola, do you want to, I'm sure people will keep on. Nifemi is a lawyer. Lovely. Nice to hear from you. Good. And, you know, just one, I think, yeah, quite a few legal professionals. And I think it's really pertinent to mention that more and more, especially in the legal industry, there's this shift in thinking, there's this shift in adopting a more entrepreneurial approach to the way legal services is delivered, which means we need to keep our eyes more on the money, not just on the delivery of services. So it's nice to see a few fellow lawyers and legal professionals in here as well. But excellent, great, great, great. Keep it coming. Wonu, you can kick off. I mean, we've got people contributing, so should be good to go. Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, so
welcome. Thanks, Bukola, management consultant. Got it. Okay.
Thank you. Right. So I thought I'm very particular about definitions. I like to be clear on what exactly is going on, and I kind of want everybody to be on the same page, because small to medium size or small to medium businesses it's used very often. It's a generic term. We use the term SMEs a lot, and so I thought I would just start with this slide so that people are clear what type of businesses that I'm talking about. So I've got 3 main types here, and so there are 2 categories. So there's one where it's based on the legal form. So in Nigeria, you can, if you're a sole trader or if you're self-employed, you can register as what is known as a business name. I'm not particularly confusion sometimes. So you have the first category that I've put there, which is a business name, or if you're self-employed or sole proprietor. The second one is a small, but sorry, can everybody please mute? Sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Thank you. Right, okay. So sorry. Okay, so sorry, so back to the definitions. I said we have 3 main types. So you have the second one across the screen, which is a small company, and it's what is usually registered, or what would be registered as a private company that is limited by liability. So last year, at the beginning of 2020, the Finance Act was passed. And what the Act did was, I thought was really good, was that it clearly defined what is a small company, and it used revenue as the differential to do that classification. So you have a small private company limited by liability, and you have a medium-sized company. So it's considered a small company if you earn revenues of 25 million naira or less, and a medium-sized company, which is very clearly on the screen, is 25 million naira and above, but less than 100 million. Now, I'm just going to quickly just talk through these other things about administration of tax again, because when we go through the slides a bit later on, I'm going to be making references to tax. And I think if you're a business owner, it's one of the issues that business owners tend to have, is kind of struggling with that. So if your business name, you're self-employed, Then the administration of your taxes is done by the state services, so based on the state where you're resident. So the most popular one, or the one that I tend to deal with, or we tend to deal with at in ALP, PSL, is LIRS, Lagos State. For small companies and medium-sized companies, so private companies limited by liability, the tax administration is done by both FIRS, Federal Inland Revenue, and state, because you would pay your company taxes, for example, to the federal side, and then your personal income taxes of staff and salaries to state. And then I've just put there as well, income tax applicable or rates. So again, if you're self-employed, it's a business name, personal income tax will apply to you. So what you can do, what happens here in this instance is, if you're self-employed, you're meant to do a self-assessment at the end of the year, or 90 days at the end of the year. So it's usually end of March. You kind of have a record of all your income from your various sources, and then deduct whatever expenses you've incurred, and then what is deemed to be your profit, you would apply this rate of 7 to 24%. And it's a graduated scale. So the first 300K would be 7%, the next 300 would be 11%, and so on and so forth. Now, this issue of 0% is oftentimes a bit of an issue, because people don't understand it. It doesn't make sense that, you know, I don't have to pay like tax at all, like I'm not liable for taxes. So what happened last year with the Finance Act that was introduced was that they said, if your revenue is less than 25 million naira, when I say revenue, I mean all the money that you earn, all the money that comes into the business from providing your goods and services, before you start to deduct your expenses, before you start to deduct things like salaries, the cost of your maybe ingredients, your materials, transport, rent, things like that. Before that, so when you've then deducted it and then you've calculated your profit, it's 0%. You don't have to pay any company income taxes, which is pretty extraordinary, because if you happen to have revenue that goes over by 500K, so you earn, let's say 25 and a half, you immediately move into the 20%. So there is a bit of, it's a bit weird, because I think what it now means is that people will start asking themselves, okay, should I split my business into two? Do I underreport? It's a new law, it's a new rate that's come into play. So we haven't really seen what the impact of it's going to be, and we don't know how the tax authorities are going to respond when we start filing. But anyway, so this is really just to kind of say, this is the company types I'm referring to, and here they are. So moving on. So the next slide is, I beg your pardon. Okay, so we're doing definitions again. So when I was looking at the flyers for today's session, it's called how to do accounting for small businesses like a pro, but there was also reference to bookkeeping as well. So I thought it would be good as well for us to just kind of see that they mean slightly different things, so everybody once again is on the same page. So bookkeeping, I just think of it of tracking your inflows and your outflows, tracking and tracing. So you're just keeping a record. So bookkeeping is essentially record keeping, which is stated on the slide. And all you're doing is every inflow, everything that comes into your business. So whether it's money, whether it's money from the sales of your goods, fees for your services, whether it's money that maybe you've borrowed, whether it's money that is coming in as an investment, you're recording every single thing. And this really forms the basis of you being able to prepare your accounts, you being able to prepare financial statements, being able to really see what's going on. So this, being able to get a really good hold of this aspect of bookkeeping, or bookkeeping at all, is really going to be the key to doing your accounting like a pro. So the next row we have just talks about the frequency, which means how often should you be doing it. It can, and the frequency will depend on the need of your business. It will depend on how busy your business is, the volume of your transactions. So you probably want to do daily record keeping if you have daily transactions. So maybe you work, you know, in retail, you work directly with customers. So people are buying your things every single day and you are also spending money every single day. If the transactions or the volume is not as high, maybe it's just every couple of days, then you might want to just consider doing your bookkeeping once a week. And I think just to kind of, on this frequency thing as well, you know what's going to work best for you. As you know, as a business owner, you know, like, okay, when is a busy time? When can I schedule this? Or when can I delegate this? So that's that. With the accounting and preparing of financial statements. So on the definition there, I've got the measuring, the processing and communicating of financial information. It's a record of financial affairs. So when you're doing your bookkeeping and you're keeping your records, you might not necessarily know if you're making a profit, if you're making a loss. It's not going to be clear. So the way I like to think about it is that I'm telling a story. So I'm taking everything that I've gotten or done while bookkeeping and I'm processing it to see what is going on in the company. So that's kind of the relationship between the two. Again, on frequency, you're not going to be preparing financial statements as often as your bookkeeping records unless you need to. So it's going to depend on the statutory requirements. It's going to depend on the legal requirements. So when I say statutory, so larger companies in Nigeria are required to file returns every year with CAC. And also you're required to file audited accounts with the tax authorities, which is also once a year. So moving on, records and statements. So it's just an example again. I think I've said a few things on this already. It's just really an example of the type of record. So you want to keep a record of your sales, your expenses, your inventory. So if you are a bakery, for example, you want to keep a record of all your ingredients. If you manufacture anything at all, so maybe if you make leather goods, and so you have a supply of leather, you have a supply of fixtures and fittings. These are things that you want to be recording. Payables and receivables, very key. So the payables refers to what you owe, and your receivables is what is owed to you. Now, this is a very important part because very often times when business owners don't keep track of this, it can cause cash flow issues. So it's really something you want to keep on top of. And for the statements for accounting, we have your income statement, your balance sheet, and your cash flow. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of these statements because I think really and truly the key for small businesses is to start with the record keeping, and the aspect or the part of preparing these financial statements become a lot easier. But essentially, your income statement is essentially just showing your inflows and outflows strictly to do with your business. So revenue or income from your sales, your cost of sales, your salaries, your rent. And then the balance sheet kind of shows more of your assets. So things like, so if you buy equipment, if you bought property, for example, your bank balances. And then this is where you would also show when you owe money or if money is owed to you as well. And then the cash flow statement is also quite important because it shows the actual cash position of your company. So that's important because cash is king, right? And also because in accounting, sometimes we tend to prepare most accounts on something called an accrual basis. So what that means is that we are recording all the sales even though we may not have necessarily received a cash. And this, the other thing is that we're recording all the money that we owe, even if we haven't paid it. For an example, might be that at the end of the year, when you're recording your expenses, you're going to say that, you know, I owe 1 month's bill for power or for water or something like that. But because it's not due to till the next month, we record that as a payable on the balance sheet. And then so hence the need to kind of have this separate cash flow statement because of the way we do accounting. So, okay, so moving on, just the last section is just do you. So the bookkeeping is for you, it's for the business owner really. Just for you to see what's going on so that you have documentation about the business, and it enables you to then go on and prepare your accounts. So if you can get a hold of your bookkeeping, the preparing of accounts is going to be a lot easier for you or for your accountant. And then we have the use for your accounting statements, your financial statements, which I said earlier on. It's used if you need to file with CAC, if you need to file your taxes. And then this is the point which you really find out whether you're making a profit, you're making a loss, whether too many people are owing you money, whether you are owing too much, whether you're not really doing as well as you hoped, or you're not growing as much as you hope. Because one of the other things that is quite useful to do is looking at 2 different years side by side and measuring that performance. So I'm going to move on. And so this next section, what I want to do, like I said earlier on, I'm trying to make this interactive. So if we've had people coming in, what we said at the beginning was I wanted to try and tailor the examples to make it as practical as possible. I don't want this to become a lecture, which I'm sure it's already sounding like one, but I promise you it's going to get more interesting. So if you've just joined us, thank you very much. If you can just type in the chat box, please, if you're a business owner, kind of the sector your business is in, please. And also what would be useful is if you can just say how long you've been in business. So yeah, thank you. Amaka, so if anybody is
I'm here.
About anybody else is typing, or if we can kind of hear how long in business.
Okay. No comments coming in yet, but I'm sure the comments will come in. Okay, so we've got your hubby, I think, Adedamola Fasehun, and what they've just said, starting an online business. Tolu Ali, welcome. Hairdressing salon. Bimps, welcome, is thinking about starting a business. That's really great. I think there's no better time than now to start a business. And you're in the right place. You've got one of the best people in the accounting advisory business, doing this session. So you're definitely in the right place. So yeah, it looks like we've got another diversity of backgrounds over here, from hairdressing to online, I suppose, retail, to I'm thinking about starting a business. And so many people are starting businesses. Isn't that right, Wonuola?
Yeah.
A record number of people are starting businesses, especially because there's so much uncertainty with the 9 to 5, people downsizing their businesses. So you're in the right place. Let's getting the best advice you can possibly get on accounting and bookkeeping. Okay, Taiwo Da Silva, welcome. Taiwo has an online fashion store, fashion designer. So yeah, we've got quite a few fashion people in fashion in the house. Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay. Thank you. So once again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for registering. I really appreciate you taking out your time this evening. I believe it's going to be worthwhile for you. I'm hoping that I'm going to share something, say something that's going to help you in your business. We are going to take questions later on in the session. So as I'm going through the slide, if anything comes to your mind, note it down, and I will try to the best of my ability to answer you. So, like I said, I don't want to lecture you this evening. I really believe that I think a lot of people already have the head knowledge. I think sometimes it's just actually, putting these things into practice. And I think if I can just talk about what these different things can do or not doing them, the impact that it's had. So So this common issues in SME accounting, like I said, I'm really going to be drawing on some of the experiences of our clients at ALP, PSL, and particularly things that have happened during, this COVID pandemic. The COVID pandemic has really impacted business. It's changed the way we're doing business. It's changed the way we think. It's changed a lot of things. And so I think this is going to be really helpful. So record keeping, what am I talking about? I'm basically talking about documentation that covers your financial transactions. One of the things that I see a lot of, so first of all, I want to say, even if your business is not registered and you don't have a bank account that maybe is necessarily a business bank account, please make sure that you are using a separate bank account for your transactions. And I say that because you really have no way of properly assessing what is going on in your business. You really don't have a way of tracking what is going on. So please, if your business is not registered, or if you're in the process of registration, or if you're like BIMS, where you're just thinking about this business and you're dabbling, right? You don't want to go through the full process, separate it. So if you have an account, a savings account, something that you're not using, please separate it. We see a lot of problems with business owners mixing up their business transactions with their personal transactions. So sometimes I'm having to ask very funny questions, like, oh, okay, well, this person maybe is in the food and drink sector, and I'm seeing things like maybe, okay, what are some of the things I've seen? I've seen, payments to maybe a fashion designer, because I'll Google the person that has been paid, and I'm like, I don't know where this fashion designer's role is going to play in your company. So, and sometimes if it becomes a habit, you yourself will lose track of what's going on. So it's just a really good discipline. It's a really good habit. Please separate, have a designated account. I said fully functional and accessible. Fully functional because sometimes we see instances where a person will say that, oh, they can't make payments from an account, or they don't have a checkbook for. Do people still use check? I don't know. They don't have an ATM or they don't have a debit card for the account. So what they have to do is that they have to transfer money from this account to that account. And so what that does is that it's going to cause confusion eventually. You can't, again, it's just this idea that you have to absolutely be able to trace and track your expenses. You have to be able to know what's going on. Accessible, what does that mean? Please don't be at the mercy of an accounts officer. Sometimes I ask a client for their bank statement. They'll tell me they're waiting on the accounts officer. COVID has shown us that we cannot do that. This is 2021. There is no reason why you shouldn't be able to access your bank statements online. I know that sometimes the process of getting that set up can be very tedious, but I really want to encourage you.
So Ele is just for writing.
Sorry.
I think they want.
Sorry. That person, please mute. Thank you. My slides have moved. 1 moment, please. Okay, so just coming back to bank accounts again, one of the things that we saw during COVID was we had clients that didn't have access. They didn't have online access to their accounts. And I don't know if you recall, I think there was a 2-month period where the banks were closed, and it was really quite difficult for them trying to, whether it was to pay salaries because some of their staff were still working, or to meet an obligation. They had that issue. So please make sure you have a designated account. Please make sure it's fully functional, and please make sure you can access it. You should be able to access, even if you're in a different part of the world. That's the other thing as well. If you're abroad, if you're out of town, you should be able to run your transactions remotely. And then the last point I've made here is that you need to be reviewing your bank statements regularly. I would say at a minimum, the very bare minimum, you should be looking at your statements at least once a month. And I say that I say you should be reviewing them regularly, because the truth of the matter is that if you don't review it, you won't be aware, maybe if somebody has said, and if you don't get alerts either, you need to be able to track again what is going on in your business. If you leave it too long, if you leave it for a year, very often I call a client and I'll be like, there's a payment that went out 6 months ago, very large amount, and they can't remember what happened to that money. They can't remember, what that payment was for. So please, regular review of your statements. Next thing, documentation. Ooh, you need to, this is another thing that we see very, very often. Invoices. Even if you don't give out physical invoices, or if you don't give out soft copy invoices, again, for your own records and to see what your business is doing, you should have a record of your sales, particularly if you sell on credit, particularly if you do like part payments. So maybe if you provide a service and it's kind of a 50% ahead and then 50% balance after the job has been done or the goods have been delivered. So it's quite important to have a record of that as well. Receipts, those are quite important. I will say that soft copies are the way to go, because a lot of times these things can fade or degrade, things like that. So your receipts. One of my clients called me to tell me that a customer of hers, or her supplier, sorry, had accused her of not paying for goods that she bought over a year ago. And it became very serious, because, they had been going back and forth about the payment of these goods, and only for her supplier to go online and to really kind of say really nasty things about her and tarnish her name and the name of her business. And her thing was that she had paid in cash when she went to buy. She didn't have a receipt anymore. She doesn't even recall collecting a receipt. So the dispute is ongoing. So it's, something that shouldn't cause problems can really, get magnified and cause problems. So I've said payroll. So payroll is just kind of the payments you're making to your staff. Statements, I've talked about the statements again. So statements, if you use apps, if you use wallets, if you have investments for your company, and I've included the term here, cloud storage and soft copies. Again, just using the cloud to store your documentation is really, really the way to go now, for obvious reasons. Really, first of all, if you need to access documentation remotely, if you're out of town, out of the country, if your laptop, wherever it is you store your documents, gets destroyed or stolen, we've seen a lot of that happening as well. You can easily access it. Recently, we've discovered that there was a tax office that got burnt down during the EndSARS protest. And so all the documentation that was held at that tax office no longer exists. So it means that if you didn't have your own copy, you didn't have your own soft copy of whatever you filed, of your tax clearance certificate, or anything else that would have been filed with them, they don't have it and you don't have it. And it can become a problem, because if they want to go and do an audit now, because what they're even saying to business owners is that they should bring their records, they should bring their files, because they want to try and build theirs back up. And then the last thing, record keeping. It gets to a certain point in your business where you have to move to something more structured in terms of storage, in terms of recording your numbers, recording your transactions. So we really encourage business owners to very early on in the business, as soon as you can, adopt the use of accounting and bookkeeping software. And a lot of them now have cloud applications. I'm sorry, please, let me just stop my alarm. Please forgive me. Oh. Okay, right, there we go. I thought I switched everything off. Please forgive me. So as I was saying, accounting and bookkeeping software. There's a few free ones on the market, but we ourselves mostly use Xero, Sage. Wave was a free one, but I think that's coming to an end if you're not based in the in North America. But there's a lot of them out there. They're very easy to use, and it just makes your life easier. It makes your documentation neater, and it's the way to go, basically. So moving on. Okay, I'm going to read out the quote. The hardest thing in the world to understand is the income tax. And that was supposedly, I haven't been able to confirm this, but my thought is that, if Albert Einstein, who is considered to be a genius, struggled with taxes, then it's fair enough to say that, everybody else is going to also struggle with it. It can be complicated. I know that it causes problems for a lot of people. It causes problems for us as well, because we, the different issues that are faced by different business people is varied across the board. And so there's a lot of times that we need to go back, we need to do investigations, we need to really go back to the law and understand what needs to be done in those situations. So taxation issues is a big thing. And the first thing I would say is don't avoid it, don't hide from it, face it. And it's a, for me, the way I approach it is that, look, this is something that has to be done. Taxes have to be paid by all anybody that earns an income. So whether you're a business owner, whether you're an employee, we all have to pay our taxes. So there's a myriad of taxes, but the approach to take is to learn about it, to face it, seek the help of a professional, and go on. So I'm going to move on now, but we're going to just talk about some tax issues. So number one, administration. So when I'm talking about administration, I'm really talking about the process of actually just you're filing your taxes, and you're paying your taxes, you're computing, you're trying to work out how much do I owe, and what type of taxes should I pay. So again, taxes is actually something that we can spend a whole evening talking about it. So this is very high level, but what I'm hoping that we can gain from this is understand how to approach it, how to get the information that we need. And even if we have to, make a decision to say, I need to hire a professional. So I haven't gone into a great amount of detail because it can become quite complex. But I think my aim this evening is to say, not to make it seem so daunting, but more like something that, it can be dealt with, and it's something that can be navigated. Yes. So, and types of taxes. So there are a number of taxes that are due to be paid by business owners. So you have the income tax, you have VAT, so that's what you pay for consuming goods and services. You have your withholding taxes, and then you have personal income taxes that are due to be paid if you have staff. Other issues around taxes that we see is overpayment of taxes. Overpayment of taxes is a problem because our tax authorities are not really known for doing tax refunds. So if for any reason at all you find yourself in a situation where that has happened, then I really don't know how you would get a refund, because it's not the typical thing. And also the other thing that has been an issue is payment to the wrong tax authority. I beg your pardon. So for instance, if you have withholding taxes that are due, which is the withholding tax is a prepayment of income taxes, and if you pay it as value added taxes, so the VAT, so the tax that you pay for consuming goods, and you pay it, you're withholding to as VAT, if it's a mistake. And it happens quite often because typically for businesses that, large corporations, large businesses, what you see on the invoice, you see the VAT element. A lot of us pay VAT on goods and services when we go to the store. We're just not aware. So maybe the next time you go to the store, look at the receipt. There's usually a VAT element on the receipt. So essentially, making that mistake is a problem because you can't really correct it. There was when we had that issue has come up before, we were informed that we have to apply to the Auditor General of Nigeria. And when we looked at the amount that had been paid and we looked at how much work was going to be involved, we just had to let it go. So what I have here is issues, solutions, and actions. So the first thing I would say is, if you are a business owner, if you're self-employed, if you have a side hustle, the best thing that you can do for yourself is stay informed. And I say that because I feel like, in my dealings, so, over the past 18 months or so, it sometimes feels like the tax authorities are trying to catch you out. I think in terms of the tax authorities in Nigeria, that the aim is not really to, I would say there isn't a lot of effort to educate taxpayers. So you do have to be aware that yes, there might be some form of tax due at some point while you are running your business. So you have to actually take responsibility and stay informed. You can hire a professional that can do your taxes for you. You can, one of the things that has been quite helpful, you can, is joining, if you're, joining specific professional groups where they talk about things around your particular sector, any developments that are happening that affect you, that's one way of doing it, or attend a webinar like this. Very good source of info right now that I'm finding more useful than their website is Twitter, surprisingly enough. So FIRS and LIRS Nigeria, they're very, very active on Twitter. So because one of the best way to inform yourself is in bite-sized pieces. You really don't want to be picking up large documentations, large PDFs, company income tax act, personal income tax act. You really don't want to be picking up these large, hefty, wordy documents. So the best way to go with that is to say, okay, get something that is going to allow you to learn as you go along. So these bite sizes, pieces of information that just allows you to update yourself. So if there's any development, so a new development that came in this year is that if you earn less than 30,000 Naira per month, you don't have to pay personal income tax anymore, which is a good thing to know because the tax authorities do make a note of going around and demanding to see your tax receipts, demanding to know if you've paid taxes. So if you know what your obligations are, you're kind of more in a position of power. You are helping yourself. They're not going to tell you, that, oh, they've changed the law, you don't have to pay. But if you're in a position where you already know, then you're better off and you can stand up for yourself. Tax investigation. A tax investigation is usually where it can happen in a scenario where you pay your taxes, and it can happen in a scenario where you haven't paid your taxes. So the authorities can decide that, based on what you've paid and based on what they think they know that you've earned, that you've underpaid your taxes. If they become aware, if you come under their radar and they become aware that you're operating a business, you've been earning money, then they send out something known as a tax assessment. They'll do a desk review of what they think you may have earned. A while ago, there was an issue where
Carry on, Wonu. Wonu, you need to unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Sorry,
Thank you.
I think somebody must have muted me. Okay, so I'm not sure when I was muted. So so just going over the tax investigation, what I was saying was that it can happen in two separate scenarios. It can happen if you've paid your taxes and they feel like you've underpaid, and maybe perhaps you've not declared all your income. And the second scenario is if you've not paid at all and you've happened to come under their radar, because FIRS does have access to information that tells them you've earned some money. So there's one scenario is in the issue of withholding tax. So if you've provided goods and services to the banks, to government organizations, they take it upon themselves to deduct a fraction of what you're due to be paid as a withholding tax. And that amount gets recorded with the FIRS. It's usually 5%. FIRS will have an idea of what you've earned, and they have a record of what you've earned based on that. So if you ever get a letter from FIRS demanding payment, demanding anything at all, please do not ignore these letters. They will follow up. They're very motivated when they come under their radar. They have targets that they need to fill. So the first thing to say is respond. There's usually 30 days to respond to these type of letters, and you will need to probably hire a professional accountant or a tax consultant at that point in time, because there's a back and forth. They're going to want to see a set of accounts. There's a negotiation process because they would have probably added some penalties and charges. So, but the thing with that is it does happen a lot. And the other thing I want to say is that, you know, if COVID has affected your business, COVID has also affected the tax authority. So they're very motivated right now to get people to pay their taxes. So if this happens, it can happen whether you've been tax compliant, you need to respond immediately and hire a professional. Penalties. So the penalties, I guess, is kind of tied to the tax investigation again. There are penalties for late payment of taxes, there are penalties for non-payment, and so the thing to do is just to pay your tax. Be aware of that. I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. You know, be aware of that. Pay your taxes. If it's a situation where you haven't paid, so sorry. So if you are charged, the way to do that is to pay prompt payment and filing of taxes to avoid penalties there. If you've been served penalties for late payment, non-payment, again, you absolutely must respond. You know, not responding is not an option at all. And hire a professional. I guarantee you, please, you will save money in the long run. A lot of accountants a lot of accountants or tax consultants will have a relationship with tax officers there. So, you know, they can help you negotiate. It's negotiable. It's not against the law. It's not bribing them. It's nothing like that. You can actually negotiate them down. You can negotiate a payment plan as well if it's not affordable. So the last one is tax planning. So while you're obligated to pay your taxes, you're not obligated to pay the full amount. And what I mean by that is that you can plan the way you perform your financial transactions in your business in a way that will reduce your tax obligation. So first example there I said is pay yourself a salary. A lot of business owners don't pay themselves salaries. So for example, if you own a limited company where you're due to pay company income taxes, you may think to yourself that, you know, it's going to be cheaper for me to just maybe when I've made a profit, I will take it out. I think if you've gotten to a point where your business can afford to pay you, because sometimes if your business is growing, you might not be able to do that. If you've gotten to a point where you can pay yourself a salary as a business owner, please do that. It's cheaper for you. It's more tax efficient as well, because what happens is that the money that comes to you, you will pay personal income tax, which is at a lower rate usually than your CIT. So, but the thing is that you have to take all of these things into there's a lot of things to take into consideration. If maybe you are a small company, your company has not earned up to 25 million naira, then your rate of tax is 0%. So maybe that's not the thing to do. But the point is that one of the things that we help our clients to do is the tax planning, to look at what is the most tax efficient way to manage my transactions. If you're a sole trader and you're self-employed and you're paying personal income tax, you don't have a pension, you might want to consider contributing to a registered pension scheme to reduce your tax liabilities. There are things called tax incentives. So they are incentives that have been set up by the government where you can, if you're in a certain sector, so I think somebody said they're in agriculture on the line there. Somebody said that they're in the agriculture sector. I think, did he say farming or agriculture? One of the two. But there's some tax reliefs available to you. There are tax holidays available to you, for doing that. If you buy like a fixed asset, maybe a piece of equipment, and there's some tax relief there as well. So these are just some of the things that we look at, and some of the things that, when our clients want to do things, we look at the timing of it, because timing can make a difference. I wrote hire versus purchase of fixed assets. Again, it can have tax implications as well. If you purchase a fixed asset, you can claim what is known as an allowance that can be deducted from the total amount taxable, where if you just hired the equipment, that wouldn't be available. And the same goes for the timing of the purchase and disposals of fixed assets. So I don't know, Amaka, before we go on, I just wondered if anybody, has had any issues with the tax authorities. I'm trying to make this interactive, and it's very quiet. So,
you've been sharing so much information, so I suppose people are just digesting all the information. But I've had friends who've told me that the tax office literally slammed them with like ₦1 million bill. Like literally, they'll send them a 6 million naira bill, and they're thinking, what? Like, where's this coming from? So what you said about sometimes the tax office, it's almost like they're not deliberate about advocacy. They're not deliberate about education. It's almost like they're setting you up. I have to be careful, because I don't mean that. But what we're saying is we have to actually make the effort to find the information, because for whatever reason, they don't always share. But if you do go to them, they will give you the information you want, but don't expect, like the websites and all to be so up to date. But like you said, the Twitter handles are pretty good. So you can always find information on Twitter handles.
Yeah, much, much, much better. So, so with those things that happen with your friends, those things are very intimidating. If you ever see those letters, they'll say you've committed an offense of tax evasion, it's a criminal offense, you are liable to this and that, and it can really put the fear of God in you. But I think, again, this comes down to, as a business owner, please, stay informed, stay educated, seek the services of a professional. It will put you in a really good position. So I'll move on if nobody has any questions so far, any comments. So, okay. Right. I think I've jumped. Where are we? Okay, so there we go. Right, so we have some other issues here that I'm going to touch on. I put tax separately there because it's a big issue, and I think it's something that comes up more frequently than other issues.
Wonuola, if you don't mind, someone's just raised their hand. I'd like to invite them to speak. So, Taiwo, I'm going to ask you to unmute. So would you please, share your concerns or... Thank you.
Okay, good evening all.
Hi, good evening, Mr. De Silva.
Okay. Sometime last year, I tried um, to register my name or something like that. I wanted to open a bank account with my. I had done this business registration for some time, so I tried to open my name. I went to the tax office close to the address of the company, and I was told to pay about 1.5 million naira because the business name has been registered about 5 years ago, but I was not using it that period. And the guy said I should pay about 1.5 million or something that I have to pay. And I said, but I did not use this business name. I just registered it, and I didn't use it for all this. I didn't use it all this while. Now I just want to start using it. And they said, and that's the policy, blah, 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 blah. And then later referred me to somebody else. That one now said, okay, I should try and pay 250,000. And I said, this business has not been on. I'm just starting it now. I just registered it then because I had the time. To cut the long story short, I just abandoned the business name and went to open a new business name because for me it's cheaper. Hello.
So just so I'm clear, yeah.
So
So
for
just
me
so
it's
I'm
cheaper.
clear, was it the tax? Yeah. So was it the tax office that said you should was it that were they saying that you owed or that you had to pay?
They say I have to pay.
I'm trying to
That they have to
understand what happened.
that they would calculate the number of years the business has been registered. That I have to pay for those years. But I told
I
them
understand.
I've not been running the business all this while. I'm just trying to open a business account now for the business. So why should I pay? And they are saying that because I registered it like 5 years ago, I have to pay tax for 5 years.
For every year. Yeah, yes. So yes, so that is actually, they are correct to an extent, but you said it was a business name you registered. Was it a business name
Yes,
or
it
a
was a
private
business name.
company,
A
limited
business name.
company?
A business name.
Okay, so what happens when you register a company is that so when you register a company, you are required to, so after the first 18 months is the longest time you can wait before you do the first filing. So there's filing with CAC and there's filing that you do with FIRS, the tax authorities. Or there are two sets of filings. There's one with CAC and there's one with the tax authorities. Now, what usually happens is that when you've registered your business, you are required to, after a period of time, start filing with them to say, okay, I've set up a business, we're operating, we're earning money. Now, if you haven't set up a business, you haven't done anything, what they've said is that there's something called statement of affairs that you're meant to register with them. So there is a fine for not doing those filings. And even if you're filing 0% or zero revenue, there is a fine. And so what has happened in your case is that at the point that you tried to open the bank account, you came under their radar. So it's they are technically correct, but I'll be interested to know, they probably pulled it out. So it's years of, the way the fines work is that they calculate every month that you've missed, every year that you've missed. So for example, they can say that, okay, it's 5 years, so that's 60 months. So it's 60 times 20,000, and then they will now add interest on the amount owed. So that's a very likely scenario that happens to a lot of people, and a lot of people get caught out with that, because again, it comes down to not knowing. But these things are not they're not unfortunately, they're not really properly, taxpayers are not, I don't feel like they're properly informed or educated, because your feeling is that I just registered the company, I didn't do anything with it, so why should I have to file, why should I have to pay anything? But that is the laws. We've had a new companies law that came in Kama 2020. So the law that governs registration has recently changed. So some of those things have now changed. So you won't experience that those type of things going forward based on your revenue. So there isn't a requirement anymore to do those things based on how much money is earned in your business. So I'm sorry about that. I'm sure that was very shocking. but it sounds like you've resolved it. Okay.
The resolution was just to open a new business name.
Yes, I got that. Yeah. So I mean that, yeah, but just to say that it's not, they're not necessarily incorrect. If you really wanted to use it, you would have had to have probably negotiated with them. Like I said, there is a requirement to file a return, even if you haven't done any business, you haven't operated, there's no account. So that's something that we do for clients very often. A client will go and register a company or a business name, and then 6 years later, 7 years later, they decide that they want to use it. And it usually happens if they need a tax clearance certificate, and to get a tax clearance certificate, you need to have been filing, you need to have been paying taxes, even if you are declaring zero. So just something to be aware of as well. If, for people that are just trying to start businesses, you may decide that, oh, the first thing for you to do is to go and register a company. That might not be the first thing to do, because it will bring some obligations. If you're not quite sure yet, if you can start the business without too much, without the registration or without going formal, because those things, obligations will come up, and they can be very, very problematic, and they can cause you a lot of problems as well. Okay, so swiftly moving on, issues, fraud. Again, this is something that I've seen in mediation. So I'm also a mediator. So those of you that may have logged in at the very beginning, very early on, Amaka would have mentioned that. So I'm a mediator, and I mediate commercial disputes and banking disputes at the Lagos State High Court. So one of the things that has come up frequently is we've seen situations where a business owner does not keep records very often, or he doesn't keep records at all. So there was a particularly very, very, very massive fraud that I had to try and I had to mediate over. And so I'll explain what happened. What happened in that instance there was a business person that does projects. So the way his business run is that he does one project where he does one project where he manufactures something or produces something, and I can't go into too much detail because of confidentiality clauses, but I'll get the message across. So the way his business is structured is project by project. So he manufactures, he produces, he hands over, he gets the money for that and moves on. And so it was a very big project. Hundreds of millions of naira was his revenue. And his usual practice was that he would wait till the end of the project to be concluded. And this particular project took 12 months. So throughout the 12-month period, he was he wasn't keeping detailed records. He was just recording, here and there. He'll have some records of inflows and outflows, but he wasn't keeping proper records. So he comes to the end of the project 12 months later, and his accountant prepares a set of financial statements, and he starts to ask him some questions. Now, what had happened was that during the 12-month period, this business owner is making a lot of money. He's making a lot of cash is coming into the business. And he decides that I don't want this cash sitting in my account. What I'm going to do is I'm going to invest it in a particular vehicle. He talks to his account officer, and the account officer says, okay, we can do this for you. After 3 months, you get your interest, you get your capital, it's guaranteed, it's very safe. So he likes the idea of it, he does it. So the first month he does it, he gets his capital, he gets his interest. So after that, he continues to do it. But he also notices that he's only now getting the interest. He's not getting the capital back. So he says to his account officer at the bank, oh, I'm not being paid I'm not being paid the capital. I'm only being paid interest. Like, what's going on? And the account officer says, oh no, don't worry. that, you know, we're holding it for you at the bank. That's the way this vehicle works. The problem was, it was a fraud. It was, the account officer was acting fraudulently. I beg your pardon. It was, he wasn't investing the money the way the customer thought he was. He had come up with fraudulent documents to say that this is your investment that you own. And it only came out after 12 months because his accountant prepared a set of accounts, was auditing what he had done over the 12-month period. And he started asking him questions. He said, money is going out. I'm seeing interest come back in. The documents you have for these investments say that the money should come back after 3 months. The money is not coming back. What's going on? He said, oh, the account officer said they're keeping it at the bank. And the accountant said, well, it should show in your bank statements. It's not there. So from there, they had to go to the bank, and it turned out that the account officer had diverted tens of millions of naira into another scheme that had nothing to do. And unfortunately, you know, this businessman was in his late 50s. He wasn't really kind of up to date with how these investment vehicles work. It wasn't anything complicated, but he trusted the account officer and he took his word for it. And so this is just some of the, it sounds very far-fetched, but these are some of the things that are happening. So fortunately for him, they caught it, he got some of his money back. But my thought was, wow, you know, if this man had been preparing his records properly on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, this would have come up a lot sooner. And he wouldn't have gone through this very long-winded process to get his money back. So just, and again, to say, these are the things that some of the pitfalls, if you don't get into that habit, if you don't understand, you know, what you need to do to keep proper records and why you need to keep proper records. And like I said, just something basic as regular review of your bank statement. Disputes, no record, no proof. Again, this has to do with legal disputes. If you don't have a record of a transaction happening and there's a dispute about it, you know, how do you prove that that thing has happened? I used the example of a client that was accused of not paying a debt almost over a year ago, and you know, was subsequently embarrassed online. You know, the person really went online and had a field day and said very nasty things about them. So again, the record keeping is a very important thing. It's not something to, you know, that as business owners, it's something that has to be prioritized. And I do understand that, you know, if you're in, you know, like if you're like Taiwo, where, you know, you're in the fashion business and you're in the creative business, you're like, you know, you really don't want to be spending time like focusing on those things. You want to focus on developing your products. You want to focus on making your products. You want to focus on honing your skills and providing a service. So maybe at that point, you have to delegate. You have to hire somebody to help you. Inventory management. If you manufacture, you process. So maybe, for example, you make leather goods, or you are a bakery, or you're a caterer, and you find yourself buying, you know, large amounts of stock in, you know, in food items, leather items, you know, things like that. It's really important that you have a system in place for recording not only the purchase of these things, but the movement of it. We have a lot of cases where staff steal things and you don't find out so much later, or maybe the food goes to waste because you really haven't been able to record your stock, your inventory. Visibility, virtual and physical. Now, the thing now is having online visibility. It's necessary, it's important, but be aware that if you're someone that is very, very you have very high visibility on social media platforms, then you know be aware that the tax officials, FIRS, LIRS, they are now on Twitter. They do monitor you. Sometimes I see people publishing parts of their bank statements, saying how much they've done in sales. And my thought is always, I hope this person is paying their taxes, because the tax authorities are becoming more and more savvy online. And the same thing with your physical presence. If you decide to go and open up a shop, you put a signboard up, you have a very colorful building or whatever, be aware that you must absolutely be tax compliant. You must absolutely, be keeping your records and be ready to answer them. Sickness and death of owners, more around business continuity and, having your records in good order in case, God forbid, the worst happens. What happens if you're not around? What happens if you're not there? So I'll move on now. Okay, so I've been talking about hiring an accountant, hiring a bookkeeper. You may think that my business is very small, I can't afford it, or you may think that, I don't do much, I don't need one. So these are just some things to consider, whether or not you need to hire an accountant or hire a bookkeeper. So I'm going to go through it very quickly. Commencement of business. So when you're starting the business, an accountant can help you set up, make sure that you're making the right decisions, whether it's about your funding, getting a loan, whether it's about investors. If you operate in a regulated sector, oil and gas, telecoms, finance, where you are answerable to a regulator, absolutely you need to definitely consider. If you become very busy and you need to delegate, that's something else to take into account. I'm just going to fly through them now. Volume and complexity of your transactions. If you serve government organizations, multinationals, if you find yourself in a situation where you're being investigated by the tax authorities, and also if you're seeking funding for your business, you probably need to hire somebody to assist you and to help you navigate you, so that you don't undersell your business, or so that you don't take a loan that is is not affordable for your business. Next, moving on. Okay, so this is just to talk about some of the things. I know that when people think about accountants, they just think, well, the account is not balance sheet, but that is a very small part of some of the things that I do in my role at ALP. And so I've just listed some of the ways that we are helping our clients, some of the ways that we help business owners. One of the things that we're doing more and more of is business advisory, where we are kind of serving as a sounding board. So, sometimes when you're inside the business, the day-to-day business of doing things, it's difficult to step back and really assess what you're doing, assess your decisions, assess things that, do I have enough money to invest? Do I have enough money to expand? Do I have enough money to get more staff? I want to take on it. I want to take on a loan. So all of those type of things, we look at it. We look at your tax planning. We look at even the way you set your salaries. So at the moment, it's the beginning of the year. A lot of business owners are looking at, okay, do I increase my staff salary? We'll do some computations for you. We'll look at the impact based on, okay, this is the taxes that are due, and so forth. I'm going to move on. So we're coming to the end. And so it's just to go back to the title of this session. And it's really just 3 main points that I want to hone in on. How do you do small business accounting like a pro? These are 3 things to bear in mind. Your records. If you don't do anything at all, if you're not, for whatever reason, have your records kept regularly, have your records kept in a way that is accessible, have your records kept in a way that you can see what is going on in your business. I think as business owners, I have a lot of respect, a lot of admiration for business owners, particularly business owners in Nigeria, because you are going through a lot. You are sacrificing a lot. There's blood, sweat, and tears every day. You know, you're battling something, and so you know, to not get this portion right is not fair to yourself. You know, so please, if there's nothing else that you leave with, just this idea that your record keeping is very, very important. Try and form a habit of getting it right. Inform yourself how to get it done right, or hire somebody to assist you. The second one, regular assessment of business performance, which is looking at, am I making a profit? Am I spending too much money? Do I need to increase my prices? Preparing a set of accounts will help you do that. Your records will also help you do that as well. The last one is tax compliance. We can't get away from taxes. There's no way of escape. So let's face it, and let's do the best that we can to educate ourselves, to keep ourselves informed. For me, the best way I think to keep yourself informed about tax issues is in bite-sized pieces. You know, be able to, even if it's just you're following FIRS, you're following LIRS on Twitter. I trust me, you know, you will really do yourself a world of good. It's those little bits of information that you're learning gradually is how you become more kind of build your understanding and educate yourself, you know, about what you need to do and what your tax liability is. So we have come to the end of me talking. I'm hoping other people will start talking or asking questions.
It was
my
good.
contact details are there. So, you know, if you have any questions, maybe you're a bit shy, maybe I went through it really fast. I've said a lot. I really, really tried to not overload you with information, particularly on the tax side of things. So those are my details. Those are ALP details. Please reach out. We do a lot of consultations. We do a lot of meetings. We spend a lot of time talking to business owners, trying to understand your business, see how we can help you, see how we can serve you, and even educate you. You know, that's something that we are doing more and more of. So yes.
Lovely. Thank you, Wonuola. That was so informative. You know, there's so many things that go on in the tax world, and I admit, I hold my hand up. There's still a lot that I could do better on in my business, my side hustles as well. I do have one question for you though. To what level of detail do we need to keep receipts? So for instance, I don't know, like transport, you know, transport might be as little as, I don't know, 400 a day, 1,000. Are we expected to keep receipts for things like transport as well?
So,
Petrol.
okay, when you say so with your transport, is that if that's something like Uber, you know, one of the things I said is copies, doing things online, doing things in the cloud. There are ways that, depending on what you're doing now, maybe if it's transport where maybe somebody's taking public transport, you may not be able to do that, but you can record it somewhere. So that's where the use of an accounting software or bookkeeping software. But let me tell you, you need to be able to account for every single naira, every single kobo that you spend. Because if you don't know where your money is going, I'm telling you, you know, 400 naira here, 100 naira here, I'm telling you, it adds up. So that's where the use of online platforms come in, soft copies, the cloud, accounting or bookkeeping software. Record it in there. You can upload soft copies of your invoices or your receipts. We do a lot of that as well. And then you can get rid of that receipt or just note it down. But everything, I know it sounds daunting, but the more you do it, the better it gets. And if it gets to a stage where you can't handle it, then, you know, you delegate. Hello?
Sorry, I was muted.
Other?
Excellent. Thank you. Excellent. Yeah, we just have to get it. We have to make it a habit of record keeping. Just have to keep emphasizing record keeping, record keeping. Good. Okay. Just looking through comments. Yes, I mean, generally, I think people made their comments as we were going along. So we're not too far behind catching up. Acknowledging Chief and Mrs. Fasehun, welcome to the webinar. And Bims says she agrees, or he agrees 100%. So yes, I think it's been really, really informative. There's so much. The world of taxes is like you said, there's more to it than just it doesn't balance. It's a lot more than just balancing books. There's the advisory side, there's the strategy side. There's so much. Thank you very much from Madame Ronke Adeneko on the excellent presentation. So, thank you very much to all of you. We don't want to keep you too much longer. We're about to clock 9 o'clock, so we're doing quite good for time, but it's been super, super informative. Wonuola, you shared your contact details. What we'll do is, if it's all right, and if you don't mind providing the slides, we could always send the slides to all participants. I'm sure they'll be, just so that they can get your contact details and reach out to you. But yes, everybody's sending their thanks and well wishes. So yes, you heard it here first on Develop Your A Game. This is a platform where we intend to keep members of the general public updated. Just like Wonuola said, advocacy is the name of our game, because it is through advocacy and through education that you will enrich your lives, you will, boost your businesses. So let's start practicing these habits from tomorrow, because today is already fast spent. But thank you very much, Wonuola. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that attended tonight. Do follow Develop Your A Game on all social media handles so you can stay abreast of upcoming mind maps. So thank you very much. You will get a copy of this recording. Everybody's saying thank you, Wonu. Wonderful presentation. Yes, Wonu is brilliant.
I want to say thank you as well. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for asking me to come on. And thank you to everyone that registered, that stayed. Honestly, accounting, tax, bookkeeping, it's not exciting. I think for me, what really motivates me is being able to help business people, so I do know that it can be challenging, but please reach out, please try and stay informed. And if you do things and make it a habit, I guarantee you will get better, it gets easier, and managing your business accounts will become easier for you.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. All right. So I guess it's time for me to wrap up this webinar. It's been great, informative. Do follow Develop Your A Game across all social media so you can stay abreast of content development. You can stay abreast of fantastic presentations just like this one that you've heard today. So from me, Beverly, Amaka, thank you so much. Take care. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye.